Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight virtually to provide this brief overview of the Pre-Health Studies program at Richmond. I am a member of the University of Richmond Biology Department and serve as the primary health professions advisor on campus, which means I have the privilege of working with a lot of ambitious and talented students on campus who are looking at careers in dentistry and medicine and allied health areas. My goal tonight is just, again, to give you a brief overview of the program and answer any questions you may have about the program and how it operates. For the program overview, I've prepared a short slide presentation that I'm going to screen share with you, and just wanted to alert you to the fact that there is a Q&A box that you'll be able to add your questions into as I go through the presentation. And then at the very end, I can go back and address any questions in that box, as well as ones that you all might want to add afterward. So I'm going to share my screen with you. I've included my contact information on the screen here for you. If you're seriously considering a pre-health track, then you'll want to be sure that I'm aware of this and that you're on my pre-health list, my email list, so that you can receive information about the orientation meeting that will happen for new students at the start of the semester. I'm going to be saying more about that in a later slide. I'm not sure what led you to view this particular interest session, but if you can answer yes to most of the questions that I have on this slide here, then you should definitely be considering a healthcare career. Every year I interview applicants to health profession schools, and the two most common reasons that students give me for pursuing a healthcare career are that they are passionate about science and passionate about working with and helping people. And a healthcare career is certainly one of the most personally rewarding and impactful careers you can have. So if you find yourself, answering yes to these questions, and you're in the right place and should be considering strongly a health profession career down the road. Here's another reason why you should be considering a health profession career if you answered yes to most of those questions on the last slide. This figure shows the number of persons employed in the United States in the top 3 sectors of the economy. So you have manufacturing represented by the blue line, retail jobs in green, and then healthcare jobs are shown in red. And in 2018, for the first time in history, healthcare surpassed manufacturing and retail to become the largest source of jobs in the United States. But there's also an important trend that's been going on for a lot longer, and it is a change in the age distribution in this country. This figure is from the US Census Bureau and shows how the number of persons in millions has changed since 1900. You can see within the next 9 years, we're going to see a tremendous increase in the number of persons at or above the age of 65. And obviously, this is going to challenge our healthcare system in big ways. And we know that persons that are over the age of 65, for example, have more health problems than persons below this age group. And despite the fact that healthcare is an enormous source of jobs in our economy, our country is looking at real shortages in healthcare providers across most of the fields because of this and other demographic trends that are going on. So for example, this is a recent communication from the parent organization of medical schools in the United States, where they are projecting that by the year 2033, the United States is going to have a shortage of at least 54,000 physicians, with the potential to go as high as 139,000 doctors. Unfortunately, we're seeing similar shortages for other fields as well. They're projected for nursing and other kinds of healthcare providers. So it's pretty much across the board that we're facing these challenges. The good news in this for you, though, should you decide to follow a health profession career, is that the job outlook is very strong in any of these areas. So this particular slide is showing you the U.S. Department of Labor job outlooks that's published in their Occupational Outlook Handbook. And they classify all the jobs in the US according to expected growth. And that ranges from decline at the very bottom there, which means it's decreasing by 4% roughly, all the way up to much faster than average growth. And you can see that most of the common health professions are in the highest projected growth rate category. So the bottom line on this, quite simply, is that there are lots of jobs to be had in healthcare in the future. So I'm going to switch gears now with that introduction and tell you a little bit about pre-health studies at Richmond. And I'll begin by showing this distribution of career interest for our students. This pie chart here is showing you the various types of health professional schools that our students applied to for 2020 entry. About 1/2 of the applicants you can see applied to medical school, with the remainder applying to a variety, a mix of different allied health profession schools. I'm typically referred to on campus as the pre-med advisor, but I actually prefer to be known as the pre-health advisor because I do advise students in all of these various tracks. And we certainly have a lot of growth happening in the non-medicine areas. The fastest growing one right now, in fact, is the one in orange, which shows you the students looking at physician assistant school. And this just gives you an idea of how we've been doing in terms of our placement of students into professional school. So regardless of which one of the tracks you might be considering, the university has a very strong record of its students gaining admission to health profession school across the board. Just for comparison, the national acceptance rates for these programs are typically in the 40 to 50% range. And so as you can see, our numbers are much, much better than that at the university. So what I'd like to do now is just to highlight some important resources for pre-health studies that we can provide to students looking at health profession careers. So first, on the advising front, I'm the primary health profession advisor on campus, and I meet individually with students to help them, kind of map out their semesters, and that includes both curricular planning in terms of, looking at what the major and minor, might be for a student, and then making that fit with their health profession coursework, but also helping them think about extracurricular activities and how to plan for those. So every student at the university will have an official academic advisor who signs off on the schedule and helps them with creating the schedule. You can think of me as a secondary advisor. So you really would have two advisors if you're on a pre-health path, and I'm going to be helping out with that process, looking with a particular interest in terms of the pre-health coursework, but also, again, working with your academic advisor on your overall schedule. I also lead various workshops throughout the year that are targeted to the needs of different class years. For example, I lead a workshop just for second-year students, and we talk about ways that you can bolster your extracurricular activities ahead of the application year for professional school. For a lot of students, that happens in their junior year, sometimes senior year as well. So we kind of map out plans to help with that process. And then, when the application year finally does arrive, I'm helping students with their professional school applications and offering a variety of workshops there, focusing on topics like interview preparation and how to go about choosing which schools they're going to apply to for that application cycle. I'll mention also Alumni Connections here because many of our alumni are either health professionals or in training programs now. And so because I maintain relationships with those graduates, it's easy for me to then connect our current students with them. So I'm involved as helping to make that connection for our students. And then the Health Professions Advisory Committee is a committee that I chair that interviews and writes recommendation letters for all of our applicants to medical and dental schools. And that's a big semester-long process that happens every year in the spring. Okay. I think I'll switch over then and talk a little bit more about academics specifically. I think you probably already know that as a pre-health student at Richmond, you'll spend a fair amount of time in the Gottwald Science Center, which is where my office is. But in addition to the Science Foundation you'll be getting in Gottwald, we also offer additional resources for students specifically who are pre-med. In terms of an MCAT preparation course. So this is a course that anyone can take who's had the basic pre-med coursework. There's no tuition for it. It was developed in-house, and so that's how we run it. And it involves group work, small group problem-solving sessions. It involves individual tutoring sessions as well, again, at no cost to students. I also wanted to mention the health studies major and minor. This is actually brand new for this coming year. We have a new curriculum. We have a new department of health studies, which I helped create, and very excited about this addition. We've just hired an international expert in the field of public health who will be joining us in August. And the idea with this program is that it's a nice complement to the science coursework you take for health profession training, because what we address in the health studies department are the non-science aspects of healthcare delivery, which are just as important to consider as the scientific aspects. So these would include your understanding of things like health policy and legal issues in healthcare, ethical situations in healthcare, business aspects of healthcare. So you probably heard at some point that medicine is a business. And so this is a program that gives you a lot of insight into those areas. There's a particular focus in the field of public health, obviously with our new faculty colleague that we have just hired. So you'll be able to assess not only the business, legal, ethical, political sides of things, but also think about healthcare delivery from a public health standpoint. Finally, I wanted to mention that we have several study abroad partners that offer coursework or programs having a pre-health emphasis to them. The University of St. Andrews in Scotland, for example, allows pre-med students to take certain courses there that actually count toward medical school prerequisites, which is really unusual. Typically, the professional schools will not take coursework from abroad, but this is a special arrangement we have with that particular institution. In terms of experiential and extracurricular, there are clinical externships that can be done in Richmond. Richmond's a great city for healthcare. We have an academic medical center at VCU downtown. We have a lot of major hospitals that are near the university, lots of private practices, many of which have, again, our alumni practicing. So that is an option you can consider, doing clinical externship, shadowing type experience outside of campus. There are lots of volunteer community service opportunities as well. I will be going over all of those at the orientation meeting at the start of the semester. So you'll get more information about those at that time. We also offer an EMT training course every year. that is run by our students. We have a student-run EMS group that reports to the police department on campus. So information about the EMT course will be put out probably around the time school is starting. And then I'll mention there are various pre-health student groups on campus, some of which are more clinically oriented, like the UR-EMS, that's the one I just mentioned, student-run EMS group. Others are going to be more service-oriented, like United to Heal. You'll be able to learn more about these groups, again, at the pre-health orientation meeting. So how do you get started with pre-health studies at Richmond? It's pretty easy. There is no formal application process to be on a pre-health path. All you need to do is make sure that I know about you and your interest and that you're on my email list. So to get on that, I've included a link on this slide here to a Google form that you can complete to be added to that list. You can also, if you lose the link, just feel free to email me directly and I can send it to you. But once you've completed that form, you'll be put on my list and then receive information about upcoming meetings and events for pre-health. As a follow-up to that session, I would encourage you to meet with me sometime during the fall semester so we can talk about your interest, maybe different academic areas you're considering, and we can have preliminary conversation about how that will match up with the pre-health track you're considering. And then one final point that I wanted to make before opening it up to questions is that if you are considering seriously a pre-health track and you're not already registered for a science course this coming, or actually you wouldn't be registered at this point, but if you don't have it in mind to register for, then I would strongly recommend that you consider taking at least one science course, preferably the Chemistry 141 Introductory Chem course that's shown there. So I'm going to stop the screen share at this point. I'll check the Q&A and see if there are any questions here. Some are coming in now. So there was a question about externships for pre-vet students. So we have had students do this before, even for academic credit. There are a few vet practices around Richmond that will take students. There's one that's about 20 minutes from campus I know of. It's taken a few of our students. That's an equine vet, so a large animal vet. But it's a large practice of about, I believe, 20 veterinarians, and they're really good to work with. There are of course, lots of smaller vets, like small animal vets that are scattered around Richmond that could be connecting points too for doing some kind of internship. There's a zoo and there's a Richmond Metro Zoo even, if you're interested in exotic animals, that could be a potential connecting point there. So let's see, there's a question about whether or not the health studies major would be recommended over traditional majors like biology. So that's a good question. My general thought on it is that you should really choose your major based on your interest, right? And if you start taking courses in the sciences and for the pre-health track and taking other liberal arts courses, in other areas and just decide that there's some, academic department that interests you more than science, then that's what you should follow. If you follow your interest, then you're going to do better academically, and you don't have to worry about the science part of it because you'll take the basic pre-health coursework that you need for the professional schools. It's certainly not necessary to major in science to be on a pre-health track. Let's see, there's a question about the latest one can declare that they're on a pre-health track. I really don't think there is a latest. I hear from students throughout the year at all different levels. I just got an email last week from someone who graduated in May, who wasn't pre-health at Richmond and now wants to start on that track. So it's never too late to start on a pre-health track. I just meet students wherever they are, whenever it comes to them that that's the best fit for them career-wise. It is true that the later you start on the pre-health track, the longer it eventually will take before you're done with the coursework. So from just an idea of like starting out as a first year, if you're pre-health, then you're going to start taking the courses in your first year for that. And that means, you would be in a position to take, a professional school entrance exam at the end of your third year. If you decide your third year that you're pre-health and haven't taken any science courses up to that point, then it probably means, you won't be able to fit all the science coursework in at Richmond and may have to take a few additional courses afterward or in the summer. So there really isn't a latest time to declare that you're following this path. And I work with students who are graduates. So I have, obviously there are a lot of current students at Richmond who are on the pre-health path, but I also work with alumni very frequently. So it's whenever it feels right to you that that's the best career fit. Let's see, there's a question about the EMT course. So that's a good question. Yeah, how long does it run? Is it like a regular class? The EMT course is not one that you register for through Bannerweb. So it's technically not an official university course. You're not getting credit for it towards your degree. It's a separate course that is set up by the student-run EMS group. The course, as I recall, meets 2 nights a week. It's 3 hours a night, and then it meets some Saturdays. It generally starts in mid-September and runs through April of the next year. It doesn't meet during winter break. So it runs most of the academic year. It's a fairly intense, time commitment for that one. Let's see, what are some other recommended courses besides Chem 141 for pre-med? The main one would be Biology 199, which is our introductory general biology course. Some students choose to start with that one just because they feel more comfortable with biology than they do chemistry. The reason that I had on my slide to start with Chem 141 is just because that course is a prerequisite to the second biology course. I think now it can actually be taken as a co-requisite along with it. There is more chemistry that you take for most of the pre-health tracks than there is biology, believe it or not. So if you look at something like the pre-med track, there are 5 chemistry courses that you have to take as opposed to only 2 for biology, right? So that was just, why I said start with chemistry. Those courses are sequenced. So you take, the first 4 courses, you have to take them in order. And, the 5th course is typically going to be one that you would do junior year. Some people even do it senior year, but the first 4 are the ones that are really important for the MCAT. Let's see, do you need to take calculus as a pre-med student? Can you take algebra-based physics instead? So that's a great question. Most medical schools do not require calculus. Having said that, physics at Richmond is calculus-based. So to do physics at Richmond, you would need 2 semesters of calculus. You can do algebra-based physics, but we don't offer it. So it would have to be done as like a summer class at another school and then transferred into Richmond if you wanted to do the algebra-based approach to physics. Our courses, let's see, courses recommended, courses to recommend for the MCAT prep. Yeah, for MCAT prep, the courses are going to be organic chemistry, general biology, and physics. Those are the main science areas. And then you would take psychology usually for the new social sciences section of the test. And then There is a little bit of sociology on the test as well. So I do recommend sociology if there's room for it in the schedule. Otherwise, I've known students to just independently study the sociology topics because they're not quite as many as for something like psychology. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions there right now in the Q&A, so I'll just sit tight for a second and see if other questions come along here. Looks like we still have a few minutes left if there are other questions. Okay, so here's a question that's come in asking about a Bachelor of Arts degree compared to a Bachelor of Science for pre-health. So I'm thinking maybe that what is being asked here is how professional schools view that. And I can tell you that they're not going to consider whether one has a BA versus a BS when they are evaluating an applicant, right? So there are some, programs even that, at other schools that would be science degrees that are Bachelor of Arts, right? So some biology departments only offer a BA, for example. At University of Richmond, we offer both BS and BA options, but in terms of the way professional schools will view it, they will not, take that into consideration. They don't view the BS as better than the BA. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions right now. Please feel free, though, to contact me by email if you have any, follow-up questions. And I'll look forward to meeting you all, hopefully in person in the fall semester coming up. And until then, hope you all have a great rest of the summer. Thanks, everyone.